Hi there. Welcome back to Ravenous Babble. My name is Dan, and that's Teton. Today I just wanted to let you know, since this is the first episode of Babbling On, that Babbling On is going to be audio-only content, with the exception of this intro in particular. Babbling On is going to be lengthier content, and if I'm being honest, I don't really want to be sitting in front of camera the whole time. So whether you're working, chilling, doing whatever he's doing, get cozy and listen to me babble on about what I consider to be the world's greatest TCG, Flesh and Blood. Thanks. Hey there, my name is Dan, and welcome to the first episode of Babbling On, where you get to listen to me babbling on about a particular topic. Today, I'll be babbling on about Dynasty, the newest Flesh and Blood TCG release. Let's start at Pro Tour Lille with the reveal of the Emperor. The first multi-classed hero, the first hero with a deck building restriction, which I called, by the way, and I can provide screenshots. And the first hero with the royal talent. Considering the Emperor's ability to play Command and Conquer straight from your deck, many questioned if Command and Conquer would see a reprint in Dynasty, which we'll get to later on. For now, let's talk about the build-up to the spoiler season. Content creators and the Flesh and Blood community as a whole were all surprised by some early spoilers that were unannounced. The content creators had received tracking kind of out of nowhere, and when they came in, we discovered that they were receiving the Relics of War. And these Relics of War, these spoiler cards, were accompanied by handwritten letters from the Drakaev ceremonies. And this portion of the spoiler season was really flavorful, and it definitely got everyone hyped up for the actual spoiler season to come. The beginning of the actual spoiler season kicked off in an incredible fashion. After hyping up the Emperor, LSS posted a YouTube short revealing the new card, Regicide, along with the news that the Emperor had been assassinated by the character Arachne, the first hero for the new assassin class coming with the Dynasty set. This reveal evoked powerful emotions in me that I felt before, but only in 2 instances to be exact. And I want to tell you about those to demonstrate how powerful this reveal was for someone who plays Flesh and Blood. Because this was our season finale cliffhanger moment, only this was a trailer for a single card to kick off the spoiler season. Anyway, the 2 instances, and I apologize, these are not Flesh and Blood related. First off, I'm a longtime player of both Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV, both of the MMORPG Final Fantasy series games. I'm not currently active in either game, but I've got quite the storied history if you ever want to sit down and share stories. Moving on. When Final Fantasy XIV was first released, it was not well received at all. To sum it up, it was a shit show. I'm not going to pull any punches. Square Enix, the creators of the game, came out with a public apology. They brought in a whole new team to fix the game, and Naoki Yoshida was brought on as the producer of the game. And the new team managed to get the game to a playable state while also making it free to play, which was nice. Once they got to a good point, they announced that the servers would be shut down for 6 months or so while they prepare to relaunch the game. You'd be able to keep all of your progress, your equipment, etc., so no worries. You're going to have to take a break. The interesting part here is that they actually worked this into the lore of the game. To sum it up, a red meteor named Dalamud had begun to fall towards the planet within the game, getting closer and closer as time passed. And after the server shut down, players were presented with a trailer, a cinematic trailer, for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, which was the new name for the eventual relaunch of the game. Accompanied by the song Answers, the trailer showed the meteor approaching while a war was waging beneath it. It's a scene of utter chaos that you're presented with. Then, we find out what the meteor actually is, and this was a huge reveal because no one knew. Turns out, the red meteor, Dalamud, was actually a prison for the Elder Primal Bahamut, a big old dragon. So Bahamut breaks out of his prison and begins to devastate everything in sight. You can see the heroes in the trailer, who are meant to be a representation of the players in the game, losing all hope at the sight of the devastation. And when Bahamut is about to attack them, a magic shield suddenly appears around our heroes, created by Louisoix, who's a very important NPC in the main story quest of the game. He then tries to seal Bahamut away in a new prison, but fails. Bahamut breaks free again, and in a last-ditch effort, he teleports our heroes away, and you see him smiling as he's consumed by Bahamut's attack. The trailer ends there, with our fate unknown, as the title screen for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn appears. When I first saw that trailer, I was speechless. I was shocked. I cried a little. It was truly a one-of-a-kind experience that no one will ever be able to experience again. You quite literally had to be there. And this was 10 years ago. Ever since, Final Fantasy XIV has been on a great track and has become a very successful MMORPG. Now, I had a similar experience about 3 years ago with Magic the Gathering and the War of the Spark trailer. In this trailer, you see Liliana, once an ally of the Gatewatch, who are essentially the good guys in Magic, after her betrayal. You see her as she witnesses all the death and destruction that she's created after being enslaved by Nicobolas, the big bad evil guy. It's a long story. In that moment, she chooses to risk it all to turn against Nicobolas and help the Gatewatch. In the trailer, after seeing Liliana betray him, Nicobolas grasps his fists tight and uses magic to literally start disintegrating Liliana as she's fighting back. And the trailer ends, zooming in on her face, with her scream. Now, we know what happens after the fact, but the trailer ends there. It's just... whew. During all of this, there's an eerie cover of In the End, originally by Linkin Park, and it fits it perfectly. Overall, it's a masterpiece, and while this is really a whole nother video, it's a shame to have seen Wizards of the Coast fall from grace in recent times, and I truly hope that they can right the ship and turn things around, because there is a depth of storytelling and gameplay experience there that many people around the world enjoy, and it would be a shame to see that go away because of corporate greed. All of that being said, getting back to Flesh and Blood. While it wasn't an expensive cinematic trailer like A Realm Reborn or War of the Spark, the Regicide reveal evoked the same kind of emotion in me, with literally 2 pieces of art, a camera pan, a transition, some audio, and a black screen that says, "The Emperor is dead." I don't even know, it was maybe 30 seconds long. We'd spent the last 2 months hyping up and speculating on the Emperor, being told that he's an important character in the story, only to have him assassinated at the beginning of the spoiler season, before he's even seen play. I felt so many feelings after watching that short, and I watched it a lot. And to be able to evoke the same level of emotion with so little, LSS, I mean, bravo. Like, really, bravo. And I don't mean the hero. Just job well done. I'll make sure to put links for all 3 of the aforementioned trailers in the description below, so check them out. See if you can put yourselves in the shoes of the players of those games if you aren't one yourself. But man, Dynasty, what an experience that spoiler season was. Truly a masterclass. Anyway, getting into the actual set. Dynasty brings with it a completely new archetype for most classes in the game. Some narrow, some broad, but there's something for everyone. I'll go through each class and give my thoughts on them, closing out with Assassin. First up, we've got Brute. Brute got rock. Do I need to say anything else? Next class. No, I'm just kidding. But rock is dope. It's an awesome weapon. I really look forward to people using that, and I really hope they do, and it doesn't just die off as a meme. Brute actually got quite a few new tools that frankly scare the shit out of me. Savage Beatdown is terrifying if you can pull it off. Skullcrack is definitely going to see play, and Berserk has some gross potential. Outside of those, Reincarnate is a very solid card, being Brute's pseudo-drone of brutality. And while I know it's already been voiced by people like Ethan Van Sant, it's a shame that we didn't get any direct support for Levia. So, Guardian received a lot of shield support in this set, which mostly seems to be aimed at the upcoming PvE format. However, they did get Buckle, which I think is going to see a lot of competitive play. The card was actually in the top 8 of the Battle Hardened in Philadelphia last weekend, in the hands of Connor Rooney, sorry if I said your last name wrong, playing Bravo. So it's out there making waves. Keep an eye out. Keep your equipment safe. I do think it's notable that Guardian didn't get a single new attack action in Dynasty, so there's that. Illusionist is a strange one in Dynasty. Dromai got 3 cards in the form of playable Ash as actions that removes Phantasm for specific dragons. Dust from the Golden Plains for Thamai, Dust from the Red Desert for Vincerakai, and Dust from the Shadow Crypts for Necria. These are interesting, and while I've heard the general opinion be that they should have had Go again, I think that they'll make for interesting second and third cycle support. Time will tell. Besides that, Illusionist got a ton of Spectral Shield support, and some of it's neat, but a lot of it has Ward 1, which kind of turns me off from it. Phantasmal Symbiosis seems pretty good, and I'm excited to see where that goes. And Prism got a legendary ally, Soraya, Archangel of Knowledge. So that's cool. Unfortunately, the front-facing side of the normal non-Marvel card has a typo. It says, transform target special shield you control into Soraya Arcane Herald. But her name is Soraya Archangel of Knowledge, so whoops. It's not a huge deal though, since most of the time you'll be looking at the back-facing side of the card. So, if you have OCD, there you go. But, good news, if typos do bother you, the Marvel Soraya instead says, a legendary invocation to transform a chosen spectral shield you control into Soraya. So there you go. Bright side. Mechanologist is the winner of Dynasty, in my opinion, at least. They got the Nitro Mechanoid, which is essentially a Gundam. What more could they have possibly asked for? What's that? Hand Disruption? Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, we'll give him Hand Disruption. Pulse Wave Harpoon is bonkers. And let's not forget about their new weapon, the Hanabi Blaster. Mechanologist actually terrifies me now, and if we end up going to metrics in the next set, whew, watch out. Hopefully the future design of Mechanologist moves away from the boost mechanic a bit, which might be the mechanic I fear most in terms of power creep. And Nitro Mechanoid gives me hope that LSS can deliver on that kind of design. So I guess we'll find out in due time. Ninja got a whole new archetype in the form of Crouching Tigers. And this is a really unique card in the sense that it's a token that can be created in the Banish Zone to be played until the end of the turn. And in some cases, it can even be created in your hand. This is a first for me. I can't think of another TCG that has done something like this, creating a token in your hand. But if you know of one that has, post it in the comments down below. I'd love to know. While Crouching Tigers don't seem like something that Fi would be interested in, maybe we're missing something there, it does bring Katsu to the forefront. Katsu's pretty much been taking a back seat since Fi hit the scene with Uprising, so that's great news. Also, calling Crouching Tiger Katsu is just a straight up flavor win, and I love it. Ranger for the most part seems to be Azalea focused in Dynasty. Not that you can't use these cards for Lexi, I just think she'll be better off with her more traditional game plan. Outside of Heatseeker, which I think is great for both Rangers, the new Ranger cards focus on the aim counter mechanic, which comes from the new bow, and also Point the Tip, a new card in the set. This mechanic is similar to the Royal Talent in the sense that it enhances the cards that utilize it while not being limited to it exclusively. But unlike the Royal Talent, if you don't utilize the aim counter mechanic on these cards, they're essentially just raw damage with no additional effects. And I don't really know how to evaluate these cards because I haven't really played Azalea, but it feels like they're going in the right direction to provide support for her. So that's good. Runeblade. My baby. So, Runeblade got a new archetype in the form of Pitch Matters, meaning that your game plan is to pitch both non-attack actions and attack actions to activate all modes of the card that you're playing. And I think that's just an interesting take on the traditional 50-50 split between non-attack actions and attack actions that you have to consider during deck construction. Outside of that, we got what I believe to be the beginnings of a Control Viserai. Looming Doom pops all your rune chants in favor of doubling the damage over time, and I don't know about you, but Annals of Sutcliffe screams Control Viserai to me. We'll see how this develops over time, but I truly believe it's coming, and I really hope it is, because that's my one dream. On that note, I'm going to save my Viserai tangent for the second episode of Babbling On, so look forward to that, because I've got a lot to say. But until then, Duskblade did nothing wrong. Hashtag free Duskblade. Warrior got quite a few interesting cards, in addition to the 3 weapons that they received, which is appropriate. It's Warrior. They got Axe support, something that we were really curious about after seeing the Merciless Battle Axe spoiled as a Relic of War, since it costs 3 resources to attack and also wants to be pumped to more than twice its base power. It's a lot. It does seem like the two-handed axe design is more about a single devastating attack rather than multiple attacks in a turn with additional combat tricks that we've seen in the past with Warrior. I like it. Jubiel Spellbane is the new two-handed sword that gives you an edge against arcane damage heroes, more specifically wizards. And the Quicksilver daggers open up a lot of potential for dual-wielding builds in the future. Outside of their new weapons, there are two cards that I feel like are worth mentioning. Spirit of Arena and Ironsong Pride. Spirit of Arena is a Bolton legendary, though it isn't a Bolton specialization, oddly enough, considering it deals with Lumina Ascensions, which are a specialization. But I believe that's just to keep Shiana in check. I could be wrong about that. This card lets you play your Lumina Ascensions at instant speed, which I believe enables some nonsense, but I'm not 100% sure since I don't play Bolton. Yet. I'm becoming more and more interested in him, so we'll see what happens. Ironsong Pride is pretty crazy, being that it gives you a counter on your weapon, and the counter sticks around, which really increases its value over time. But just like Dorinthia, you have to make sure you're landing hits, or all of your counters will go bye-bye. And since it's also an aura, you have to watch out for its removal. Though aura removal isn't super common yet, but, keep an eye out. There is always Runic Reclamation. Wizard is a tough one for me, since I don't have a ton of experience with it. But it seems like they're playing a bit toward the your own turn matters mindset, with the introduction of Blessing of Aether combined with the Surge mechanic. We'll see where it goes, because honestly, I'm not too sure myself. And that brings us to Assassin, Arachne, the spider. Assassin, who was apparently meant to be released all the way back in Arcane Rising, in place of Runeblade from what I'm being told, is finally here. And they come with a whole kit, ready to go. There are even assassin slots in the booster pack so that the assassin cards can get out there and people can actually build the deck to enjoy it. And it feels like Arachne's game plan is to complete contracts, get silver, and utilize that silver to buy back their equipment while maintaining a grindy mid to late game strategy. It feels like a true mid-range hero. I could be wrong, especially since it's still early in the set's release, but that's how it feels to me. Regicide is a card with tons of flavor, and I love that. Their Majestic cycle, being focused on the different pitch colors, feels very strong, and their equipment, which has Battle Worn, attack reaction effects which do require them to be destroyed, and can be bought back with silver at the beginning of your turn, is huge. The Black Tech Whisperers in particular, in my opinion, are the strongest leg equipment currently in the game. I mean, it's almost essentially Snapdragon Scalers that can be used multiple times in a game to not only block, but also give go again. That's nutty. Overall, I like the class. I think LSS did a great job, and I look forward to seeing how it performs moving forward. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the Fabled of Dynasty. Let's talk about Command and Conquer. My opinion on this hasn't changed much since the reveal, but I've more or less come to terms with it. My view on Fabled cards is that they're unique cards that can be played as a one-of in niche builds and generally aren't required for competitive decks. Now, that being said, Arknight Shard is in most Viserai decks, but again, it isn't required. Hell, I usually take my Arknight Shard out of my deck during pregame because it can't block. And that's not great sometimes. There are some decks that can definitely benefit from a Fabled card like Kano and Eye of Ophidia, but it's never required for the deck to function. How could it be? It's a one of. One argument that I understand against the previous Fabled design philosophy is that the price of any given Fabled could get out of hand if a powerful combo or interaction is introduced to the game. While it's not a powerful combo per se, the Heart of Fyendal is a decent example here. Post-Worlds, after Michael Hamilton won with Icelander, the Heart of Fyendal, which was included in his winning list, shot up to $500 very briefly, and then quickly stabilized at around $350, and is currently, at the time of recording, sitting at $295. When I started about 4 months ago, give or take, this card was $150. And I think I got mine for about $120 because I did a lot of shopping around. And back then it didn't even see a ton of play. It was, again, niche. That being said, there is a risk that a Fabled card could eventually price a player out of a specific deck. But right now, the more expensive Fabled cards, Arcanite Shard, Eye of Ophidia, and Heart of Fyendal, are less required for any given deck and are more synergistic, if that makes sense. Now, all of that being said, I wasn't thrilled about the Command & Conquer Fabled reprint for a few reasons. It feels like we have 8 sets and only 7 Fabled cards, meaning that Command & Conquer is not a unique effect card like the other 7 Fabled. It's a Majestic from 2 other sets. And the other reason is, while Command & Conquer does in fact need a reprint, now more than ever, even though it's currently being printed in History Pack 1, I had truly expected it to appear as a Marvel rarity in Dynasty. Though, with the drop rates of Marvel cards, maybe that wouldn't have made much of a difference in hindsight. The card itself is absolutely gorgeous. I can't argue with that. And if any card deserved this kind of treatment, it was Command & Conquer. However, considering that, I couldn't see any other card getting this treatment except for maybe Enlightened Strike and Art of War, which are probably the 2 cards you'd expect me to name in this circumstance. And I hope that this was either a one-time event to celebrate the Emperor and his effect and his significance in the story, or it doesn't happen more than once every other set. We will inevitably reach a sort of critical mass in the game's popularity, and the aforementioned cards will need to be reprinted. Art of War, Command & Conquer, and Enlightened Strike, they're all already starting to go up in price. I mean, they've all historically been expensive, but they're now going up from what their lows were a month or 2 ago. And I don't mean a Fabled reprint, I mean a traditional non-foil reprint like Scar for a Scar in Uprising. You could pull it as a common, but you couldn't pull it as a foil, which is LSS's stance on reprints. So, a lot of people speculated that Command & Conquer would get reprinted in Dynasty because of the Emperor, and again, I didn't disagree. I just didn't think that it would be a normal Majestic. Because of that, a lot of people sold their copies in the short term, or waited to buy them, and now those people probably aren't too happy, since Command & Conquer is currently fluctuating around $100, up from roughly $65 after the Emperor was announced and the speculation began. There was even a dip to $50 after the announcement that Command & Conquer was getting reprinted as a Fabled. But before people realized that it wouldn't really affect the market in terms of availability because of how rare it would be and how high-end collectors would probably want to have a playset of 3, which is completely different from any Fabled in the past. The card's kind of all over the place right now. So, we'll see where that settles. I don't know. Again, more or less, I've come to terms with it. It's great for collectors. It will help sell the set and lower the cost of everything else for the actual player base who just needs the cards to play. But it feels like we missed out. And maybe that's just me. So, what was Dynasty missing for me? What isn't there that I wish was? I did have high hopes that we would see some Runeblade Scythe support. Specifically, I suspected that we would get a Pummel Razor Reflex type card that focused on Axe and Scythe. Maybe one day. I still think that's going to happen. I was definitely hoping for a new Runeblade weapon that attacks for 1 resource to more easily transition from Rosetta Thorn when Briar hits Living Legend, which is probably going to be sooner than later. Hashtag free Duskblade. I really should put that on a sticker. I did expect at least 1 dragon for Dromai, even if it was a legendary dragon. And when Crouching Tigers came out, someone had asked James White if there are any hidden dragons in Volcor, and he was like, of course there's hidden dragons in Volcor. And it's like, well, that technically isn't an admission that there would be dragons in Dynasty, just that there's still dragons out there to be made in the future. So kind of got myself hyped up on that by accident. That's on me. This was a big one for me. Guardian legs. Just Guardian legs. Like, Mechanologist finally got hands. But where are the legs, LSS? Is this a Guardians skip leg day kind of meme? If it is, it's funny. But for real, can we get some boots? Maybe? Soon? I'm not even a Guardian main. It just bothers me. Shadow stuff, Draconic Ninja stuff, nothing in particular, but it feels like Chain, Levia, and Phi kind of got left behind in this set. I mean, sure, Levia got some brute cards that people were kind of arguing back and forth whether she got support at all, but there was no shadow stuff that maybe Chain and Levia could have shared. I think there were hints dropped to some people that there would be a Shadow Fabled, and that didn't happen, so I don't think they're too happy. I guess you could argue that Phi got a body piece in the set with a Blazing Yoroi, but it's only good in the mirror match. It's only good to block for 5 if it's Chain Link 4 or higher. So you can block a Lava Burst. I mean, that's more hit points for you, definitely. Especially when Phi isn't really a blocker to begin with. So, pop that bad boy on and you got 45 health if you're playing CC. But is it worth the slot? I guess time will tell. So we'll see what happens with that. While I didn't have this expectation going into Dynasty initially, as soon as we got to see Yoji, I fully expected to see a Gisarm, and we didn't get anything of the sort. That just made me sad. I just want a Guardian Spear now. Are we gonna get it eventually? Or are we just gonna be swinging hammers forever? I'm sure we won't. Game's still pretty new. If 5 years from now we're going to have so many options, it's going to be beautiful. I did believe that we would get the Starvo treatment for one of the existing adult heroes, but only because James White had said sooner than you think when asked about it at Pro Tour New Jersey, which, by the way, did I mention that I live in New Jersey and that I got into the game 2 weeks after the Pro Tour? Devastated doesn't even begin to describe how I feel about that. But yeah, he said sooner than you think, so I expected, well, Uprising's coming out in like 2 weeks, it's probably not that. But Dynasty? Didn't happen. Maybe in the next set. Maybe that's what he meant. Sooner than you think might be different to James White, you know, depending on the development schedule and whatnot. Anyway, let's not end this on the note of my disappointment for missing Pro Tour New Jersey. How was your experience with Dynasty? What's your favorite card? Did you get any good pulls? Are you brewing anything spicy? I know I'm really working some Viscerai lists, and that'll be in the next episode. But tell me in the comments down below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get at least one piece of content out every week, and I hope that you'll come back to stay a while and listen. I'm overwhelmingly passionate about the Flesh and Blood TCG, and I hope that you'll walk this path with me as I work toward improving both my content and my skill as a player. Please, let me know what you think I can do to improve. What do you like? What do you dislike as far as my content? Let me know. Until next time, stay safe and keep playing great games. I'll catch you later.
Wow.